dialogue should also start with these relevant policy makers in the government. So I have actually divided my today's talk into four main groups. Okay, first I'm going to talk about the quintessential question as to what is cryptocurrency and what is Bitcoin. And I suppose it is very necessary to talk about it right now because everybody is reading news about Bitcoin, going up, and in the international markets, it's fetching a good price. But what exactly is Bitcoin? What exactly is cryptocurrency? One needs to understand. And obviously, what are the misconceptions about cryptocurrency? I would perhaps try to clear that as well. The second part of my talk will involve what is the business or probably what is the presence of cryptocurrency here in India. How have they evolved? When did they start coming? And what is the kind of investment which is being made in cryptocurrency in our country? The third part is very interesting and rather very close to my heart. This is about the legal activism. Legal activism, in a sense, are there any laws in cryptocurrency? If yes, what are the laws? If not, why there are no laws? And what are the steps that the government has so far taken so as to regulate this market? Because this market is something which has reached such a stage that the lawmakers cannot actually afford to ignore the market. And last and the fourth, the most important part would be if there is no law or if there is no adequate law, okay, what sort of law are we looking at when we are actually talking about cryptocurrencies? So, and after that, I am open to all sorts of questions. Okay, so let me begin by asking the quintessential question as to what is a Bitcoin, or rather, what is a cryptocurrency. So, cryptocurrency is something which you always, I'm sure everybody today, whoever is attending, has heard about Bitcoin. And what is latest on the Bitcoin front is that in the world markets, the value of Bitcoin has come as close to $20,000 per Bitcoin. Okay, and it's also something which is trading in India, not only in just world market. And there are investors, maybe handful of them, maybe chunk of investors in India who have invested adequate amount of money in Bitcoins. So let's understand. Somewhere in 2008, there was a paper which was produced by this person called Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto first time conceptualized a terminology called peer to peer transaction. Okay, now let's understand with a simple example. I am sitting over here in Mumbai, and if I want to transfer money to, let's say, somebody who's sitting in Delhi online, how do I transfer the money? I transfer the money, let's say through Paytm. I transfer the money, let's say through Google, or I can also make a bank to bank transfer. So, what is involved, or rather, who are involved? There are three people who are actually involved. I am there, the person who is going to receive the money in Delhi, he is there, and you have a bank. Okay, why do you have a bank? You have a bank to actually authenticate the entire transaction. First of all, confirm that okay, Rashmi has 100 rupees in her account, it is confirmed. And secondly, Rashmi is doing the transaction of shifting that 100 rupees from her account to somebody else who is sitting in Delhi. Okay, this entire transaction between the person who is sitting in Delhi and me has to be authenticated by a bank. And why does it need to be authenticated? Because there is there is no other form to probably confirm the fact that I owe the 100 rupees and the transaction which I have made to the other person is a true, clear transaction. Okay, so in all these kind of transactions, you always have to have a third party to authenticate the transaction. And most of the cases, it is the bank. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto in his paper has actually conceptualized peer to peer transaction without the requirement of having a third party authenticate a transaction. Okay, so if I am sitting over here in Bombay and I have to give my bitcoins to somebody in Delhi, I do not have to have a bank which is going to authenticate the transaction. Okay, and now you'll ask me the question as to why. Okay, so the reason is the Bitcoin or the technology, the blockchain technology, which has powered this concept of Bitcoin, has made the Bitcoin completely secure. How has it made it secure? If I am the one who has a Bitcoin in my system, okay, I transfer it to, let's say, transfers it to C transfers it to D, and so on and so on. This entire transaction from transferring to Rashmi to A to B to C to D is all authenticated by all the systems. Every time C to D has to make a transaction, my system will authenticate the transaction that yes, in my system I used to have this Bitcoin, which from my system moved to A system is going to authenticate the transaction saying that yes, I received the Bitcoin from Rashmi in my system. Similarly, B will have to authenticate. So you understand there are blocks, and every system for every further transaction has to very much authenticate it. So when there are multiple systems which are involved in one transaction and the transaction is not centralized, the authenticity of transaction is confirmed. So if I move a Bitcoin from one system to the other system, all the previous systems where the Bitcoins were there will have to authenticate it. So therefore, you do not require a third party like a bank or any other financial institution for the purpose of letting you know the authenticity of Bitcoin and the fact that the Bitcoin was with Rashmi at one point of time. So that is the beauty of this blockchain transaction. And from this blockchain transaction, this technology, you have a digital asset which is nothing but a Bitcoin. Apart from Bitcoins, there are other cryptocurrencies also. Bitcoin, of course, is one of the most famous ones. You have Ethereum, you have something called Tron, you have something called XRP. So there are various Bitcoins which are trading as crypto assets or digital assets currently in various exchanges of the world, cryptocurrency exchanges of the world. And as you must be hearing, Bitcoin today, we are talking about COVID era, it has touched 20,000 per Bitcoin. Similarly, other cryptocurrencies are also climbing. Their value is also increasing. So ultimately, this is a digital asset. And this digital asset is backed by a technology, a robust technology called blockchain. So now, how popular or what is the business of cryptocurrencies here in India? Cryptocurrencies in India were first introduced or rather started trading in India in 2015. You have to have an exchange also here in India, or it can be on other exchanges. But most probably, given the law system or the current legal framework, it is better to have an exchange here in India. And since 2015, let's say 17, 18, 18, 19, we had various exchanges which enabled the Indian investors to invest in bitcoins and the other cryptocurrencies also. And around in 2017, the business of Bitcoin had, or rather cryptocurrencies, had hit the peak, where around 2,500 people were on a daily basis investing in cryptocurrencies. So 2017 was the peak. And post COVID also, or rather post lockdown conditions also, the value of digital asset cryptocurrencies also increased. Now globally, as of now, Bitcoin or rather cryptocurrencies are doing a business which is as high as around 260, 70 billion dollars. So you can understand the business, the volume of business is so high that it is something which cannot be ignored at this stage. So while we were sitting in 2017, 18, and everybody here in India was investing, and we were sort of experiencing our own Bitcoin boom. The question was, what were the rules and regulations, and was there anything to actually regulate the cryptocurrencies here in India? That was the big question. And what were the authorities, like let's say RBI, SEBI, or any other government institution, was actually doing when they realized that the businesses in cryptocurrency was reaching billions of dollars? Now, since this was a technology somewhere in 2015 which came to India and it was not exactly understood, there were a lot of warnings which were issued in sort of like public notices by the RBI. The SEBI also every now and then, although they did not come up with any sort of formal public notice, they were also sort of giving indications or rather warning to most of the investors that this is a technology which is actually not regulated by any of the laws here in India. Therefore, let's try to tread carefully, and the investors should be mindful of the fact that they are investing without any adequate checks and balances that is generally provided by a law. So let's say by 2018, there were just sort of warnings which were given by the government, but nothing very substantial as a law was introduced by the government. Now, come April 2018, RBI for the first time came up with a legal provision related to business of cryptocurrencies here in India. What did the RBI say? The RBI basically came up with a notification, and as you all know, RBI is something which is regulating the banks. Okay, so it came up with a notification for the banks saying that uh, the cryptocurrency business is something which is very unclear. Okay, therefore, those banks who are providing assistance to cryptocurrency exchanges here in India should immediately refrain from providing such kind of a support. And therefore, as a result of this particular circular, all the banks who had provided a platform for cryptocurrency exchanges to do the business withdrew the support. And therefore, the cryptocurrencies which were traded as commodities here in India, okay, it experienced one of its biggest jolt since it started trading in 2015. So there were a lot of writ petitions which were immediately filed against this RBI circular, and at the same time there was a committee also which was headed by Mr. Subhash Garg, which came up with a committee report saying that why a business of cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency exchanges should be banned in India. So while the uh, the banks stopped providing support, and there was this committee report also came in, there was a big fear that the the RBI circular was just the beginning, and there was a good possibility that the government was going to come with a full-fledged law to completely ban cryptocurrencies. And there was one bill also which was made public. It was a maximum 3 or 4 page document which simply said that cryptocurrencies is something this and cryptocurrency should be banned. It did not provide adequate, what should I say, base or reasoning as to why the government was saying that it should be banned. Thankfully, it was just a bill and it was never introduced in the parliament. So, by the time this 2008 RBI circular came in, it of course damaged the entire business, and many of the cryptocurrency exchanges who were here in India, they either started shutting shops or they started shifting their businesses to more crypto friendly countries. So you can imagine the new technology which was just starting to boom here in India had suddenly stopped. And of course investors, and I'm talking about cryptocurrency exchanges who had come up with their own technology and their exchanges, they had to suffer a loss of business. Now, thankfully, 2 years later, that is 2020, February 2020, the writ petitions which were filed in high courts and finally traveled to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court gave a positive ruling. And the Supreme Court said that the particular circular of RBI was in violation of the Constitution. It violated the right given by Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution, which allowed free trade and business in India unless and until there were some reasonable restrictions. So, what the Supreme Court noticed, or rather, what the Supreme Court ruled, was this ban by the RBI, or rather the circular. Can't call it a ban, but the circular was something which was introduced without a proper justification, without the government or probably the RBI understanding as to what is the technology all about, and it altogether stopped the people who were into cryptocurrency exchange businesses from doing and carrying out their business. So, under Article 19(1)(g), this particular circular was struck down. So this happened somewhere in the Supreme Court ruling came somewhere in February 2020, this year. And after that, of course, when there was a positive ruling by the highest court of the country, a lot of businesses who had left India, they started to look at India as something that they could take their business back to. And considering the large number of investors here in India, and considering the young population who does not shy away from probably investing in something which is new tech based, have plans to come back to India. There have been a lot of exchanges who have come back to India. There are new exchanges who want to invest here in India and this new technology. But the entire exercise is taking a long time. And why it is taking a long time is because there is a very, very important reason as to why the businesses, although they know that the Supreme Court has given a positive ruling, they are sort of shying away from coming in India full fledged. The reason is right now, as we stand today, except for that RBI circular, okay, which actually talked about cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency businesses, digital assets, there is no other law here in India. And so before again I going into the absence of law in India, if you look at the world over also, there aren't many jurisdictions who have specific laws which are related to cryptocurrencies and digital assets. Since this is a new technology, not just here in India, but world over as well, uh, many jurisdictions are grappling with the regulations. Many jurisdictions have taken baby steps towards introducing some provisions or rules and regulations to regulate cryptocurrencies and digital assets. But there isn't any major jurisdiction. Perhaps China keeps on going back and forth, but there aren't any big jurisdictions or countries which are basically banning the business of cryptocurrency anywhere. Everybody is definitely talking about cryptocurrencies on the need to regulate the cryptocurrencies, but nobody has come up with a law to ban it. Now there were speculations few months back, and many of the major newspapers were covering the story that India is going to come up with a regulation to completely ban cryptocurrencies. But thankfully, nothing substantial has been done on that. Now, coming back to the question as to why do we require laws here in India? Now, uh, before this RBI circular kicked in, of course, like I said, we did not have any other law, and everybody was doing business here in cryptocurrencies. Things were moving very well, and many of the investors were making money. Cryptocurrency exchanges, their business was also flourishing, and it seemed like India was not going to miss this bus, and the digital asset was going to be the next big thing. Now, what has happened? They have realized that while the government is silent as of now as to what is going to be the fate of cryptocurrencies here in India, the fact that there is no law puts businesses in a very precarious condition. There is a air of uncertainty around it, because since you don't have any laws, one day, like the RBI circular, if any other ministry or any other institution in the government comes up with an adverse regulation, comes up with an adverse circular, suddenly the business which is flourishing will completely go away, which will completely stop. And this is something which I also experience with many of my clients, that before the RBI circular, their business was flourishing and they had made substantial amount of investments. And the moment the RBI circular came in, all the investment that they had made, it was gone in no time, because obviously they did not have any other investors or to support them, given the uncertain environment around cryptocurrencies here in India. So right now, where we sit, we what we are basically asking the government, and we are doing representations to the government, stating that you kindly bring in law, okay, to regulate and support this industry. Because, like I said, if cryptocurrencies is something which is doing business all over the world for 200 and 300 billion dollars, this is something that we cannot ignore. Okay, there are a lot of Indian investors also who have substantial investments. So we can't ignore, we can't completely ban the cryptocurrencies here in India. What we require as of now is adequate rules and regulations. Rules and regulations, firstly, to support this technology, because this is a new tech business and this is going to be the future. One cannot ignore that. In fact, the way cryptocurrencies have moved, 1.5 year back, cryptocurrency was trading at Bitcoin was trading as 5 or 6 thousand per Bitcoin, and now, like I said, it is 20,000. So this is something which cannot be ignored. So the need of the hour is to bring in rules and regulations which firstly support this technology, support this new tech, and at the same time safeguards the interest of not only the investors who have invested in bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, but also the businesses who have made substantial investments, and put in place checks and balances. That's also required. So if I give you certain example, let's say SEBI. SEBI as an institution and SEBI rules and regulations as an institution, it basically guards the securities, how the securities are traded here in the market, and what are the checks and balances, and what are the KYC norms which are required before an IPO, how the securities are managed and regulated. SEBI can extend its role to perhaps managing cryptocurrencies, which are nothing but digital assets. RBI, which is managing the banks, can also extend its role to manage cryptocurrencies and the business of cryptocurrencies here in India. At the same time, you have your income tax laws, you have your GST, which is also a very new law. They should also come up with clarifications as to how you are going to tax these digital assets. Okay, so when there is clarity, and especially I'm talking about tax, because I am at the end of the day, I'm a tax lawyer. So if you have clarity of tax, it ensures additional source of revenue for the government, and at the same time it ensures clarity to the investor as to what is going to be the tax applicability. So you make changes in the laws which are already there as a first step, and later on, perhaps come up with a full fledged law on cryptocurrencies. So that is how we want to urge the government, and that is what we want to say to say to the investors also, not only here in India but foreign investors who want to invest in this kind of a business in India, that this is what is the need of the hour. Clear rules and regulations is the need of the hour, and you can take baby steps by making amendments into the existing laws, bringing in clarity, and later on coming up with a full fledged bill which is only catering specifically to digital assets and blockchain technology. So I'll tell you, I'll finish my talk with one small anecdote, or rather experience that I had. Uh, I had a cryptocurrency platform which we were helping them, we were providing them with legal assistance somewhere in the beginning of 2018 and far end of 2017. And we had realized that they had absolutely cutting edge technology to start their own exchange, and they had also come up with their own cryptocurrency, their own coin, and the business looked very promising. And but before the business could take off, you had the RBI circular, which in a matter of hours crippled the entire system. So you see, when there is an uncertainty of law anywhere, it can lead to adverse effects. So need of the hour is make it clear as to what is the stand of the Indian government when it comes to cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I had a couple of questions I would like to ask. So, you mentioned you started your talk with the immutability aspect of blockchain technology,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, you also emphasized on how cryptocurrency actually works on blockchain technology. So, with this technology being so robust in nature, how then is cryptocurrency being used for, malicious transactions or for like anti-money laundering activities, etc.?
That's a very good question. Uh, that's a good question. I'll tell you why. Because when the ban was introduced, the RBI had come up with a circular. They did give this as a reasoning that cryptocurrency can be used for, you know, money laundering activities. Cryptocurrency can also be used for the purposes of, let's say, doing illegal activities like narcotics, etc., etc. See, the thing is, first just understand where we stand with cryptocurrency. Although the cryptocurrency, when I say currency, the idea was to use it as a currency. But now, as we stand today, uh, the cryptocurrency is mostly used as a digital asset today, which has a value. And that digital asset is being traded as a commodity in all the exchanges world over. Okay, so that is one aspect. And yes, being an exchange, sometimes all, and I'm not talking about these exchanges only, all the corporates somewhere or the other are exposed to hackings, okay, are exposed to these attacks by digital attacks. So as far as the cryptocurrency exchange is concerned, I know, and many of our listeners would also know, that there have been a lot of attacks on the exchanges the world over. So the idea first is to make, like any other corporate, okay, any other corporate have a robust technology spyware put in system to ensure that these exchanges are not attacked and cryptocurrencies are not illegally taken. So that was one piece of news based on which there was this ban which was introduced on cryptocurrencies here in India. Okay, but the second part of your question as to why you can prevent it from using for any kind of illegal activities. To give you that answer, like I said, when I started off explaining what is a blockchain technology, which is basically powering the Bitcoin, you can trace as to how any Bitcoin, or for that matter, how a cryptocurrency travels. Okay, this is much, much better than maybe tracing the journey of money from one system to the other system. Okay, because what happens is that when I trace the movement of Bitcoin from one system to the other system, okay, I not only get the transaction authenticated by the last system, but all the other systems where or who have had this particular Bitcoin on their systems. Okay, and only when all the other systems sort of provide a green signal can this Bitcoin transfer from one system to the other system. So you see, there is an absence of centralized system. The work of securing a transaction is not with a centralized authority, but it is with multiple authorities, or rather multiple systems, who have to basically give a green signal for any transaction. So if I have multiple systems authenticating this transaction, what is the possibility that the transaction can go wrong? You can hack one system, you can hack two systems, but you can't hack multiple systems who have had the cryptocurrency on their systems. So you see, absence of a one authority, centralized authority, ensures that this is an authenticate transaction. So that's the thing.
Right. So I understand that you are very much in favor of cryptocurrencies actually coming into play. So can you shed light on how can cryptocurrencies change the ecosystem? Like in what aspects can, there be a reformation as such?
Okay, okay. See, honestly, although the cryptocurrencies, like I said, were introduced so as to use as alternate currencies, which would not require authentication by a third party, I don't see uh, the cryptocurrencies being used as currencies anytime soon. They can only be used for the purposes of as commodities. And the reason being is that if you want to use it as a currency, it has to be accepted by institutions at large. Okay, when I say institutions at large, I always mean countries, the governments of those countries, corporates, although you have news that some corporates are accepting payment in cryptocurrencies, but there will have to be a paradigm shift in the entire concept of currency. And right now, if you know, all the currencies are basically being regulated by their central banks. RBI is the one which regulates our rupee. There is a central bank in the US which is basically regulating the US dollar, and so on and so forth. So unless and until it is accepted by the institutions, which largely includes the acceptance by the government, I do not see that this will be actually accepted as a currency or used as a currency anytime soon. But on the other hand, cryptocurrency can be used for the purposes of alternate investments. Okay, what are the investment options as of now? People invest in gold. Okay, people invest in securities. People invest in uh, real estate. Okay, so there are a lot of investing options. Because Bitcoin is powered by a very robust blockchain technology, it can also work as an alternate investment, and that is what is it is being used as, and that is why it's the value of Bitcoin is going so high right now, because people see that there is a value in investing in Bitcoin, and therefore it can very well be used as alternate investment. If you see, there are a lot of memes which are also doing the round that if in 2017 if you would have invested $100 in cryptocurrency, today you would have seen a surge of around 400 to 500 times percent rise in your asset value. So let's look at it as digital assets only for the time being. Using it as a currency will take time. So my idea is that using it as a digital asset is something which can be popularized, which can be ensured that if the right laws are in place, it can be a very sound investment options. But using it as a currency, I think it will take some time.
Okay. There are a couple of questions on the chat box.
Sure.
So Rishabh has asked,
That.
emphasis on the existence of low complementarity between Bitcoin and Ethereum, which can often be eclipsed in the wake of sporadic global shock that affect all cryptocurrencies alike, albeit transient. Your views on this?
Sorry, I did not get the question.
Okay.
Where is the
Um, Emphasize the existence of low complementarity between Bitcoin and Ethereum, which can often be eclipsed in the wake of sporadic global shock that affect all cryptocurrencies alike, albeit transient. What are your views on this?
See, if I've understood the question correctly, I think what they are saying is that if there is a kind of a global shock, okay, what will be the status of cryptocurrencies here in the world over? Okay, now, and I was talking to somebody a few days back on the securities also. Okay, let us first look at the security markets. Okay, although one would like to believe that when you're talking about securities or shares, okay, share market, it is basically backed by a physical value of assets, physical value of assets of the company. Okay, and therefore, if you kind of invest in shares and stocks, let's say something goes wrong, the company still, you still have the assets of the company from where you can recover your investments. Lot of people tell me that Bitcoin per se does not have any physical asset to back it. Okay, so therefore, on what basis are you saying that tomorrow, if there is a global shock or suddenly the value of the Bitcoin kind of goes down, how are you going to, uh, you know,
Revive
uh,
your investment.
sort of safeguard your investment? Okay,
Investment, yeah.
yeah. So to that, I I'm afraid I don't have a very clear answer to that. Okay, because what happens is that, to my mind, also, if we are, I'm trading in securities, share market, and everything else, it's all speculation based.
Hmm.
Okay, I can only say that because cryptocurrency is something which is very difficult to counterfeit. Cryptocurrency is something which is very difficult, to transfer from one system to the other system. The asset value is very high compared to any other asset. Okay, intangible asset value. Okay, considering that nobody basically can save even the securities and the stock market from any kind of global shock. That that is a risk that everybody carries in every market. So tomorrow, even if you invest in a real estate market and the real estate suddenly, for some reason, the real estate market falls, okay, all the investment that you have done either comes down or the value becomes very negligible. So to say that, it doesn't have a physical backing, and how can you ensure that whatever I have invested, I will get an adequate value? So there is no investment here in the world which will ensure you 100% profit and 100% value. So that is something that, uh, it is at the investor's own risk, and every investment is at risk. The
All
only
right.
thing that we can do by bringing in a lot of rules and regulations is to see that people who are investing in cryptocurrencies and people who are making available their platform, they do proper KYC norms of the people who are investing. Okay, people who want to sell and people who want to buy and people who want to do the trading, bring in place the adequate KYC norms. So people who have a, let's say, a narcotics background or a background which is questionable, they don't come and start, start trading on the exchange. So we can only bring in some kind of rule and regulation to ensure that traders who are here in India have authenticate background.
Correct. Right. There's another question from Sayantan Chanda. There's discussion in Europe regarding classification of cryptocurrency and trade of cryptocurrency as falling under the fundamental right of privacy, speech, association, and property, respectively. Do you foresee any of the rights under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution being potentially adapted to technology such as crypto and therefore being applicable to them as a means of protecting their usage in India, apart from the right to trade and business, which was already recognized by the Supreme Court?
Correct, correct. I am glad this question was asked. See, now if you see, the legal activism that has happened in the US, specifically the US, has sort of recognized uh, the right to express yourself in the form of, let's say, a software program. Okay, uh, so you, under the First Amendment, if I know the US laws correctly, right to express yourself was protected, and that right has been extended to, let's say, expressing yourself by coming up with a software program. Okay, and that right is something which is under your article 19, uh, 1, not 1G, of course, because that is trade, but that is also under 90, article 19(1)(a), if I'm not mistaken, where the right to, under which the right to privacy was also given constitutional validity. Now, unfortunately, on this line, here in India, there is no judicial activism which says that 19(1)(g) is always there to protect your right to do trade and business. But the right to express yourself, okay, right to privacy, which is protected by 19(1), okay, that judicial activism, unfortunately, in terms of software or digital technology, is not there. I mean, I will be very happy to see if there are any judgments which come up later on, not so soon, but later on. But yes, that is also one of those. uh, uh, you know uh, rights that can be invoked in case of digital currency, and fundamental rights can protect the digital assets under that particular provision as well. But so far, unfortunately, in India, you have not seen any kind of a case law on those lines. That has
Okay.
happened in the US, but not in India.
India. Okay. The emergence of blockchain technology is influencing the trend of development in various fields, causing major disruption. What is your opinion about the developing trend?
I will be. In fact, I'm very happy. Okay, it's a disruptor. There is no doubt about it. So let's say you have a blockchain technology in land records. Okay,
Mm.
right now, you all know that whenever you want to buy a land, or for that matter, even if somebody wants to invest in a flat in a developing building and all, you have to get that. You have to understand the right, the title of the property, etc., etc., and you have to go to the title office and do the research and everything else. Now, imagine if you have a blockchain, okay, which ensures that a robust technology which ensures that the information of a title to a property is protected by a blockchain. Okay, so much of the work and so much of the effort which goes into establishing the title of the property will be saved. Okay, similarly, if you are looking at medical records, okay, medical records also, if they are uh, protected by blockchain technology, okay, the authenticity is protected. Okay, the fact that the records cannot be expunged by one authority, because there are multiple systems who are basically handling those records, okay, or authenticating those records. If such a technology, blockchain technology, is introduced, I think it will, first of all, it will make sure that the records are available. True, authentic records are available. People do not have to go out of their way to ensure that the correctness of the records, and at the same time, uh, the what should I say, uh, uh, the involvement of many institutions, okay, that shall be reduced. Now, I'll
Right.
give you another example. Let's say if there is a transfer, uh, money is transferred from, let's say, from the US to India. Okay. Again, like I said, there is a bank which has to be involved. Okay. To give the authenticity to this transaction. Okay. Now, when you do this transaction, part of the amount is also paid to this third party who is going to authenticate the transaction. So if I'm sitting over here in India and so I was supposed to receive $100 from my friend who was sitting outside India, instead of $100, I end up getting 98. Why do I do that? Because that 2 rupees is something which I have to pay to the bank, not just my bank here in India, but the bank which is outside India also, just to authenticate the transaction. Okay, if I don't have a third party and if the technology itself ensures the authenticity of the transaction, instead of getting 98 rupees, I'm getting my entire 100 rupees. So my amount is not spent in getting that extra service of authentication.
Right. There's another question. There are people who don't believe in tax at all. I understand those
People
who
who don't
are
believe in tax at all.
tax at all.
Okay.
I understand those who arguments as well as we can see how state funds are mismanaged. Wouldn't it be better to keep the crypto non-regulated and non-taxable? The whole idea of crypto was for it to be non-government regulated. I am totally against regulation and taxation of cryptocurrency as the governments have their hands everywhere else already.
Okay. Uh, it's an interesting question, and can I take this as a last question?
Right. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
See,
Uh,
nobody wants taxes, okay? Nobody wants laws, okay? But let's understand that we are living in a civil society, okay? And you require the government to charge you taxes for the purposes of providing you infrastructure and everything and everything. Now, whether the government is doing a good job or not, that's a different argument. That's a different debate altogether. Okay, but the absence of law creates a sort of uncertainty. Okay, and the example which I gave you, that before 2018, when there was no rules and regulations regarding cryptocurrencies. Okay, the we you never knew, we were living in an uncertain time where we never knew which institution or which ministry of the government would suddenly wake up and say what you're doing is wrong, please get rid of it and please stop the business right now. Okay, if you're living in that uncertain time where you don't know whether there are rules and regulations around a business, and I'm talking about a business which is garnering billions of dollars on an everyday basis, okay, you're living in a very, very dangerous time, because then you are basically giving a leeway to the government to come up with any rules and regulations at any time, because there is no clarity on that. Okay, now what are we saying? We are saying that you come up with rules and regulations. You come up with the rules and regulations where you're saying that you're not banning the cryptocurrency, because let's face it, we can't live in a world where the cryptocurrency here in India is banned. Okay, but you provide adequate checks and balances in the system so that this particular business runs smoothly and under the guard of any institution. Okay, we cannot today live in a world where a business which is trading, or a business which is done at such a large scale is not regulated. Okay, today we are happy that okay, cryptocurrency is not regulated. Tomorrow you never know, there could be some unscrupulous elements in the system which will defeat the purpose, or which will probably defeat the investment made by a common man. So
right,
I don't think so. The line should be that don't bring in regulations, don't tax anything. That should not be the case, because that creates a sense of uncertainty. Okay, for any business to flourish, the laws should be there, but the laws should be there to support, and the laws should be there to ensure a level playing field is provided.
right.
So that's my view.
Yeah. There's another question. How do you see the entry of?
Can we do this as a second last question? Please, I have to go now.
All right, all right. Your last question was mm, on the emphasis of the complementarity. That was you've already dealt with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Uh, was it the Supreme Court aspect?
I think we have dealt with most of the questions.
Most of these have been dealt with, yes.
So you can share my email ID with whoever wants to ask further questions.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much, Law Seco, for giving me this opportunity to uh, explain to people what are the rules and regulations around these very hot topics of cryptocurrency and bitcoins, and what we as lawyers, consider to be the need of the hour. And thank you so much, and I hope everybody else has also enjoyed this session as much as I have done. Thank you so much, Lois.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Would you like to give your email ID so that people can reach out to you?
Yes, you can. Should I type it somewhere?
Yes, you can type it on the chat box.
Okay, okay. And I know this is a very, very interesting topic, and if I have not been able to answer all the questions, and it will not be possible, you people can write to me, or we can even look at having another session.
Right. Thank you so much, Rashmi. This was a very insightful session.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on board.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye.